Hey everyone, welcome to Mythology Explained. When most people think of powerful Greek gods, one name tends to rise above the rest. Zeus, king of Olympus, wielder of lightning, slayer of titans, the ultimate divine authority, or so we're told. But the truth is, Zeus isn't all that he was chalked up to be. Sure, he was powerful, charismatic, but the most powerful god in Greek mythology? Not even close. He could be outwitted, he could be resisted, and in some cases, he was straight up afraid. And for these reasons and more, Zeus was far from the top of the divine food chain. He ruled Olympus, yes, but what's important to focus on here is that he didn't rule everything. In Greek mythology, power isn't simple. It's layered, political, cosmic, prophetic, and primordial. And Zeus's thunderbolt was just one tool in a far bigger universe. But if Zeus wasn't the most powerful, then who was? To answer that, we have to go back. Before Olympus, before the Titans, before even chaos took form in the void, there was Ananke, the goddess of necessity, the embodiment of fate, inevitability, and the unbreakable laws that even gods must obey. And in some of the oldest myths ever told, she wasn't just powerful, she was the most powerful force in existence. Today, we're going to be discussing her origins and placing a particular focus on why she, above all others, should be regarded as the most powerful goddess in existence. Let's dive into it. In the beginning, there was nothing. No sky, no sea, no gods with thrones or temples. Only the raw, unformed potential of the universe. A silent, shapeless void. And from this void, what the Greeks called chaos, came the first principles of existence. Not beings in the human sense, but forces, concepts. And among the very first, older than the Titans, older than time itself, was Ananke, who just was. The eternal truth that some things must happen, no matter what, not because of choice, but because of necessity. According to the Orphic creation myth, Ananke emerges side by side with Kronos, not Cronus the Titan, but Kronos, the personification of time itself. The two of them, time and necessity, wrap around the cosmos like serpents, coiling tightly around the cosmic egg, crushing it until it bursts and creates the universe. From the shattering of the egg comes the formation of the heavens, the earth, and all the primordial elements. In this version of creation, there is no anthropomorphic deity crafting the world with intent or artistry. Instead, the universe is born through force, through the sheer pressure of fate and the passage of time. Ananke in these Orphic texts is depicted as the first and most powerful force, older than the Olympians, older than chaos even. And she is not merely a goddess, but a fundamental principle of the cosmos. Which means that before gods could even be born, or time could even move forward, Ananke was there, shaping reality itself through sheer inevitability. Her name, Ananke, literally means force, constraint, or necessity. It comes from a common noun used throughout ancient Greek texts, often abstracted in modern translations. When Homer uses the word, it carries the weight of destiny, as in, it is necessary to fight, not by choice, but because there is no other path. In later literature, the term expands to mean compulsion, fate, or even torture by a superior. Poets like Simonides give her terrifying reverence with lines like, "Even the gods don't fight against Ananke," because they can't. And that's because Ananke is not simply a force among the gods, but instead the framework that contains them. But while the Orphic tradition gives us the most vivid account of Ananke's cosmic role, casting her as the force that quite literally births the universe, it's far from the only perspective. Over time, many philosophers, poets, and historians have interpreted Ananke through their own lenses, sometimes as a cosmic constraint, sometimes as an inescapable law, and sometimes even as a goddess worthy of worship. But regardless of the perspective, one thing remains constant. Her power is untouchable across every version of Greek thought. In Plato's Timaeus, written around 360 BCE, he explores how the cosmos came into being. But unlike the mythic stories of titans and gods, Plato offers a kind of cosmic blueprint. In this account, the universe is crafted by a divine mind, the demiurge, who brings order to chaotic matter. But here's the catch: the Demiurge didn't have total control. He had to work alongside something older and unchangeable, a cosmic force Plato calls Ananke, or necessity. The creation of the world was a blend of intelligence and necessity. Intelligence persuaded necessity to guide things toward the best. Even divine reason, Plato says, cannot override necessity. It can only persuade it. That's how deeply embedded this force is in the fabric of reality. It isn't just a philosophical idea, but a limit built into existence itself. But whether she's acknowledged as a force or figure, her role is the same. The boundary even reason cannot cross, and Plato certainly wasn't the only one who took an interest. Nearly 1,000 years after the Orphic tradition first emerged, the myth of Ananke could have been lost entirely, if not for one man, Damascius, a 6th century Neoplatonist and the last head of the Platonic Academy in Athens. In his work on the First Principles, Damascius recorded one of the most vivid surviving accounts of Ananke's cosmic role, not as myth, but as metaphysical truth. And like I mentioned in the Orphic creation myth earlier, he describes Ananke and Kronos as serpent-like forces that encircle the cosmic egg, crushing it until it bursts and gives rise to ether, chaos, and Phanes. From Kronos and Ananke, who encircle the world in the form of serpents, was born ether and chaos and an egg. And for Damascius, this wasn't just mythology, it was cosmogony, a sacred attempt to explain the mechanics of existence. In his version, Ananke isn't some afterthought. She is the primal architect of reality. But nearly a century before Damascius, another philosopher, Proclus, also explored Ananke's role in the cosmos. In his commentaries on Plato's Timaeus, Proclus draws deeply from Orphic hymns and mystical sources, describing Ananke not simply as a force that exists, but as the very principle of cohesion in the universe. And according to him, Ananke is the binding power behind all order, the framework that holds the gods, the elements, fate, and even time itself in place. I think that beats a couple of lightning bolts. But while Ananke may be credited with the creation of the universe, her influence didn't end there. According to Orphic tradition, later expanded by Neoplatonists, she was also said to be the mother of the Moirai, the Fates themselves. Plato discusses their parentage. And there were another 3 who sat round about at equal intervals, each one on her throne, the Moirai, daughters of Ananke, clad in white vestments with filleted heads, Lachesis and Clotho and Atropos, who sang in unison with the music of the sirens, Lachesis singing the things that were, Clotho the things that are, and Atropos the things that are to be. Lachesis, the maiden daughter of Ananke, necessity. I actually discussed these 3 powerful beings in my last video, where I argued that the Moirai, the Fates, are feared by all gods. There, I explored their role in Hesiod's Theogony, where their origins are presented in 2 conflicting accounts, either as the daughters of Nyx, night, or as the children of Zeus and Themis. But that interpretation differs significantly from the Orphic tradition, where the Moirai aren't born of the gods, but something far older, greater, and far more fundamental. And while I previously made the case that the Moirai are the beings the gods fear above all else, the truth is that there's always a bigger fish. The Moirai govern the lives of mortals and immortals alike, spinning the thread of life, measuring its length, and cutting it when the time comes. But Ananke's power runs deeper. Where the Moirai enforce fate, Ananke is fate. She doesn't measure threads, she dictates that threads must exist in the first place. She doesn't just guide events, she sets the boundaries that make events possible. She's not just above the gods, she is above the structure that gods themselves rely on. Not just a goddess, but a cosmic law. And that's it for this video. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, please leave your video requests down in the comment section below. Until next time, remember, even the gods do not fight against Ananke.